If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's a blow made.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Stand up and take on the greed and corruption of the ruling class of this country.
The billionaire class has been taking everything, and the working class has been left scraping, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to survive.
The police department, the FBI, the CIA, those are gangs. You know what I mean? The correctional office. America is the biggest gang in the world.
A solidarity which fears not foreign invasion, because it is bringing all the workers to the point when they will say to their masters, go and do your own killing. We have done it long enough for you.
It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Guys, gals, and in-between pals, welcome to the Left 4 Dead podcast, that radical left-wing show that your crazy conservative uncle warned you about. As always, my name is Dane. I am one of your hosts, and I am joined by my other two co-hosts, the Chaos Queen herself, Emma Embers.
Hey.
And my estranged uncle, James Harris.
Yeah, that's me. And apparently we're on video for the first time. Now watch our viewership drop by 20% the moment anybody notices what I look like.
Yeah.
But yes, it's good to be here. But we have a special guest today.
We do have a very, very special guest joining us on the show today. Representative for Wisconsin's 90th Assembly District, friend of the show, friend of all of ours, former chief of staff for Mayor Genrich in Green Bay, Ahmad Rivera-Wagner. Welcome to the show. It's glad to have you here.
Hey, noisemakers.
It's good to be here. Obviously, I've had the luck to have all of you in my life in some way, shape, or capacity. So it's just amazing that you all are together making this fabulous show.
Yes. We it's been a long time coming, and we finally were like, we're just gonna start. We're just gonna do it. And so yeah, great to have you. We're going to have a couple of questions for you, kind of cover some of the news. But first, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your kind of political journey and all of that?
What I really thought about the question you had asked me in preparation for this podcast was, well, like, what radicalized you? And I have like two distinct times in my life that really changed and why I got involved in politics. The first series of things I think you all know very well. You know, I was raised by a single mom. She had me at 16. We were homeless for the first part of my life. And folks think that, you know, homelessness always looks like some of the folks they see on St. James Park. But the homelessness that we kind of experienced was from friends' couches to cars to shelters to bad landlords, and the same vicious cycle that happened over and over again. In part, that my brother and sister's father, who came along later, was system impacted. He was someone that went in and out of jails, and often because of that relationship to what he was experiencing in his relationship to us, we often experienced eviction, and sometimes that would tumble us back into homelessness in this vicious cycle. So what changed me in many ways was not only that homelessness, but recognizing that how having a permanent place to live can really shape your life for the better, and how that really takes away kind of some of the ebbs and flows of life by being able to go somewhere every time, to have a mailing address, to be able to put the same address in your student records every time you apply for the free and reduced meal program. Just the simplicity and the ease at which you get to operate through life. And so I really became passionate about housing because of that. And in part because I was a recipient, my mother, of a program called Habitat for Humanity. And the strange part is that we're talking about, I know that you often talk about your podcast as radical, but the idea of getting someone a house to permanently live their lives, to be able to stabilize their future should just be normal.
Right. We've talked about that.
Right. And it's wild that in our politics today that we somehow treat the access to housing as something that is far left.
Right.
Is a wild, strange mutation of politics. And so we physically built the house that my mom still lives in. And the lore about Habitat Homes is that because volunteers are building who you don't ask what they believe in, who they vote for, how they show up, who they love, how they identify, what faith they're in. It's people who just believe that a deserving family needs a house and they help you build it.
Yeah.
And the lore about Habitat Homes is because it's not done by experts and volunteers and people who are just trying to build the house. They always put more nails in. So every one nail an expert would put in, they put 3 or 4 nails because they're nervous. So the lore is that during actual inclement weather, Habitat Homes actually weather the storm more than traditional homes because there's like all this extra love in it. There's all these extra nails, extra beams, that people are just so concerned about making sure they did it right, that they do more than they need to. And I think that to me is somewhat of my politics, right? That you shouldn't have to have a political litmus test to help. You shouldn't have to be of a certain faith, of a certain gender, of a certain background. You shouldn't have to be a certain political affiliation. That if you actually want to help and get your hands dirty, making sure people's lives are improved, that you should be able to do that. And I want to make sure that I make that possible. And that's kind of my lens in which I look through politics. Is you shouldn't need a label or approval to just do something positive for yourself, for your family, or for the people in your community. And so that is like the first, I guess you want to call it radicalization.
Yeah, right.
It's not, like that just really changed me, right? It made me
Mhm.
and it made me rethink. I remember going through school, and we often had these like political debates, and I finally realized that they meant me when they meant the poor kid, right? When they talked about poor people being lazy or not deserving to go to college, or that we didn't work hard, even though I was working in high school to help my mom pay bills, or my mom worked 2 and 3 jobs. And connected to that, that was like part 2 of, if you want to call it radicalization, is that my mom was a home health care aide. And so for those who may not know what that is that there are folks that go into people's homes and take care of folks that are aging in place, who may have physical and mental limitations or challenges, or they can't fully take care of themselves. And so she would do this job, right? And she would do this job along with many other jobs. And for a long time, she didn't receive a living wage. At one point, this is how we recall it, she had gotten like a 10-cent raise over 3 years, 4 years.
Oh my God.
And we were sitting down at the kitchen table in this Habitat home, trying to figure out what we were going to do to make ends meet. And I literally said, well, can't we form a union for my mom? And she's like, I don't know what that is. So we Googled it. I was like, this is what I heard. I'm now in my, late teens, early 20s, and saying, well, why don't we figure out how to form a union for you?
Awesome.
And we did. So 18 months later, we made I Googled who should be her union. It was SEIU.
Okay.
Service and Employees International Union. And so just literally cold called them and said, my mom is a home health care aide. She'd love to get unionized. How can I help? And we started having meetings over 18 months. She ended up having a vote. We had people at her house. We had people come in. We did all the things that come with, a small election, select a union, and they won. And they won the first home healthcare union in my hometown's history, which at the time was the 3rd largest city in New England, but had never had one of those before. And so those 2 things, part 1 and 2, really just kind of changed my life. That you could, one, not have a litmus test to get involved, and that the people that people often shame for struggling should be part of figuring out good policy. And the second was that making sure that workers, and the most vulnerable workers, people who are taking care of our most sensitive people in our country, should deserve living wages, good benefits, and that they have residual benefits because of that. When my mom got a better benefit, our kid, my brother and sister and myself, we did better. We were able to have access to things. Christmas got better. And so there are material improvements. And then the last one is part 3, was in my old age, why I got involved in politics.
You're not old.
Locally is like a new awakening was essentially January 6th. So I moved to Green Bay. about 10 years ago. I married the son of dairy farmers. They still have a dairy farm in Middleton, Wisconsin. They help me. They bring us tomatoes and asparagus all time.
Ooh, nice.
Even though we're trying to, we already have tons of tomatoes, but they love it. And we moved here. I wanted to get involved, introduce myself to then first term, first month Mayor Eric Enrick, and wanted just to help out. I had a political background. I was here, wanted to get involved in local politics, ended up working for him. And one of the big things that happens was January 6th. And what happened here in Green Bay, while not as bad as what happened in the Capitol, is that people showed up outside the mayor's office. We had essentially let people go home because we had heard that there might be protests, but not just simple protests, that there might be connected to violence. And outside of City Hall, we had now alder or city councilor for the city of Green Bay outside with a crew of extremist Republicans who called for the Proud Boys, a white extremist group, to come get and or kill me, the mayor, and the first Black clerk.
Wow.
And it just changed me.
Yeah.
This community has been so neighborly, so kind, so uplifting to me and my husband that I could not stand by and let this be the future of our community, that who they were representing could not match what I've experienced in Green Bay. And that's when I was like, you know what, we're gonna have to fight to ensure that we expand democracy, that we make it easier for people to vote, that we reelect the mayor, that we ensure that we don't have a MAGA council. And it led to me, that pathway into me becoming an elected official, because I just didn't want to sit by and let true extremists, people who thought that there were little people in the machines flipping the vote for Joe Biden, who accused me of being an undocumented immigrant from Africa,
classic racism,
who stalked my house. My husband stalked me because they also thought I was an undocumented Facebook employee from Africa who made up having a husband. We had to press charges against people. And what I learned in that moment is that the good things you have to fight for. I had already believed, I already knew where I was at, but if we were going to make sure that Green Bay stayed neighborly and kind, uplifting and supportive the way that it has been in its history, we were going to have to fight back. We were going to have to let people know that that level of extremism not only wasn't welcome here, but you couldn't use it to win elections or chase people away. And I will be honest, there was a lot of liberals who walked away from these conversations, right? They did not want themselves, their families to go, and I understood that. But I think that moment radicalized me in a way that said, we have to plant our feet and we have to say that this community is worth fighting for. And it wasn't always pretty, right? Like I said, we had to press charges against people who stalked me over the years. They stalked my husband at the hospital because they didn't think he really was real. We had to get police protection at one point.
Wow.
All because I had the audacity to work for the mayor during a presidential election. And here's the craziest part. My biggest role in the election was handing out pizza and the media badges and volunteer badges. But for outsiders, they didn't think I belonged here. And so that became part of a larger. So those are kind of the three things that kind of changed me. Those were the two when I was very young. And then what led me into being a state rep is that we need elected leaders like the mayor and others who are going to stand up for our communities and stand with them when tragedy strikes. And that when we're tested, we need to say that we believe in making sure people have access to housing and things of that nature. So those are kind of like, I think you all knew all those stories about me.
But for the most part,
some of them.
Our five viewers don't, so I'm just kidding. It's more than 5.
I don't even live in your district, but I've run into you at way more events than I have like my own state rep. So I've seen your stump speech a couple times.
Yeah.
I didn't know all of that. It's left me with like so many questions. Like, why do they think you're an illegal immigrant from Africa? why do they think you're pretending to have a husband? Like, who in their right mind would just go out there and pretend to be gay? Like, oh yeah, let me just go get faced with a bunch of discrimination for no tangible reason. Great. Like, why? How?
So the funny part is, I think they were on. So I don't think they thought I was faking the gay part, which would be really hard to do at this point in my life. I think they thought I made up having a husband because, given my background, so I worked in Congress. I've been working in public service for the better part of my career, right? And so they were like, why would this person move to Green Bay? And the assumption was I made up a story to come to Green Bay just to steal the election for Joe Biden. And that really, but people didn't know about me because my name is Ahmad, that I must be an undocumented immigrant from Africa. I don't know. And it was just it was a very strange, it never really made sense. But they deeply believed it. So that was like and that's what I think is important to note, even in that kind of change in my life, is that it doesn't need to be true for it to be dangerous.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that was like also a click for me, is that's what we had to fight. We had to fight the boogeyman that didn't even exist, right? So it was like, how do we push back against? Of course, there's no little people in the machines. Switching the that's like so the machines don't connect to the
If there were, I would have been hired. I mean,
you're not that short, Emma.
I know.
So I wish I could tell you where they got it from. I just think, frankly, I think it was a little homophobic and a little racist. And it was a little racist and a lot.
Understatement of the century.
I think they were just like coming up with things to like accuse me of. So I mean, it's so funny now, but then it was like, we were terrified because we're like, if you're that detached from reality, what are you willing to do to like prove your point? And it was a scary time, but like, look where we are now.
Right.
And we have expanded democracy more than we ever have in this city of Green Bay. We have more early voting and more early voting hours than we ever have. We have a majority common council that cares about welcoming people and green infrastructure, that wants us to build more housing. I got elected. We now have the most Democrats ever representing Green Bay in modern history, right? So we figured something out.
Yeah.
I think that there's something cool about that.
And yeah, that kind of leads into some of the questions. So great segue. I think one thing that has always stood out to me about you, Ahmad, is you always seem very like optimistic whenever we're at like a protest and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I've seen your serious face and stuff like that, but we are in such a dark time for a lot of people, especially really progressive people. I guess it's kind of a two-part question. How important do you think it is to retain optimistic? And number two, how do you kind of retain optimism when there's so many like bad things that are happening?
I'll start with the first one. I think optimism matters. I think at the end of the day, we live in a world that hasn't gotten equality in every possible way right.
Yes,
100% of the time. Right? The history of this country, which I think is both beautiful and tragic, is that it is always trying to move towards a more equitable space where everyone can participate, everyone can thrive, however they show up, whatever language they speak, how they love. And we're not good at it yet. We haven't figured out.
In progress.
We don't start from that point. But what's been beautiful is that we've been able to add more and more equity as we like move along. And so like to me, there is a natural history of optimism that we can get it right, that we can get closer to getting it right. We know the work of unionization, green. Literally, the Earth Day was created in Wisconsin, right? The modern Democratic Party, the modern Republican Party, all have origins in Wisconsin, right? From Social Security to unionization to women's suffrage, all have a history in Wisconsin, right? So this state in particular has a bent towards justice that, to me, you naturally have to be optimistic. And I always use, and then for me personally, I just think of my own story of why optimism matters. I'm just not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. But when I came out at 18, I could not marry the person I loved. I could not serve in the military if I chose. I could be kicked out of and fired from a job for hanging out with people like me in my community or being political by being openly gay. I could be kicked out of a home, literally denied a apartment, a home loan, etc., for not being the orientation that the seller or the renter, the person, the landlord wanted me to be. That was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Like in our lifetimes, we were just openly walking through the world where that was completely okay. And people were like, you should just be happy that they're not trying to kill you. Right. I remember.
Sure, yes.
Right. It was just, and I think about the time that they used the crazy. I remember when we said we just want marriage equality and basic civil rights. And people said that we would marry our dogs. It was just, and that just wasn't that long. And when marriage equality was debated in Wisconsin, the cruelty that was just so comfortable for people. But look at where we are now, right? Green Bay is represented by 2 openly gay state representatives. We have more openly LGBTQ folks serving in the Wisconsin legislature than ever before. And support for marriage equality and basic civil rights for the LGBTQ community is at as high as it's ever been. Slightly going down a bit because of some of the national dynamics. But when you go from I can't rent a home and I can't hold the hand of the person I love in public for fear of violence to being able to live in Astor Park with 2 golden doodles and being to serve 60,000 people of this amazing city in a short span, I think there's nothing but to be optimistic that what people feel is impossible is possible, right? And so even in that space, I feel optimistic. And then the other one is we beat back a billionaire in Green Bay. I mean, people, it wasn't that long ago, right? That a billionaire came to Green Bay to literally pay people off.
Came to campus to pay people.
To pay off, right? Held a rally at the KI Center. And in 48 hours, we organized over 1,000 people who, of all different political stripes and backgrounds, who said, we're just not going to let billionaires come in and buy our elections. And frankly, that was really powerful. And to me, that's what I'm optimistic that we see all of this. We haven't run a Supreme Court race by that many points. Yeah. And not everything's about elections, but it was, and it was a temperature that despite even the dynamics of the national races.
We flipped Brown County. I mean, that was pretty huge too.
Right. We flipped Brown County because of everyday regular people saying they're fed up with the chaos and conspiracy theories, right? That we're not going to let billionaires tell us how to live our lives and that let us live.
Yes. Right.
And elect the people who we want to represent us. And so that was, so I'm just naturally optimistic because how can we not be in a world that keeps proving the point that when we fight, we win? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of ties into my kind of belief with that is that I always just remind people to have faith in people. And that at the end of the day, even when, we were going through serfdom and stuff like that, we fought our way out of it. And we, even if it's like small battles that we're winning, at the end of the day, the people are going to wake up and put their own interests first. And that's kind of what I do. So kind of similar in your regard.
Yeah, I got a couple comments and a question.
Yeah.
First comment is actually some of the stuff wasn't as long ago as a lot of people think. Like I believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I believe until there was a Supreme Court decision in 2020, Wisconsin was still one of the states that you could get fired just for being gay. No other reason, like it just wasn't. And then there's a Supreme Court decision that made it into a protected status. But I definitely remember it around 2010, you absolutely could get fired just for being gay. That was not that long ago.
Which is wild to think about, right?
Right.
Yeah. Second, I come from kind of a Weberian philosophy school of thought. For those of you who don't know, Max Weber was a German sociologist. Yeah, I know you know, Emma. But like, and he died pretty young, but his big idea was this idea that like the intent behind something matters a lot more than the letter of the law you follow. And I think your example with the Habitat for Humanity houses like showcases that more than like any analysis of policy ever could. You know, you got these people who intend to help and they put extra nails in, and it makes a house built by amateurs actually kind of superior to one built by professionals just because of that intent.
Yeah. Almost like they're putting the love and the care, the extra nails and the boards and
yeah.
We don't know if we will stand up to storms in ways that other ones don't, but there is like a deep belief that is true. And Max Weber is like the father of sociology, so it's not just a philosopher, but he's like the father of modern sociology,
granddaddy, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. I've done some of my own nerdy academic reading.
Of course,
we love that. We love that.
Yeah, there's some books here of Weber. I did a minor in psychology, sociology in undergrad, so and did a little bit about it in grad school. So more of a nerd than I probably let people on. Obviously that I'm a nerd, so just I don't think I'm actually hiding it that well, but I'm trying.
I mean, I have a literal Star Wars poster right there. So yeah.
He gestures with his Star Wars tattoo.
Right, yeah.
I think
you had a question, James?
Oh yeah. So I have kind of a theory about organizing, and I think you're actually kind of the perfect person to answer it, because I forget which position. You're the first openly gay person to fill a role in Connecticut, right?
It's Massachusetts, in my
Massachusetts.
Hometown, Springfield.
Yes.
I was the first openly gay city councilor.
And you also got kind of your start doing labor organizing.
Yes.
And okay, my theory is that what a lot of the modern Democratic Party is doing is identity politics. And to be perfectly clear, I am not saying that the goals are bad. Like a lot of the identity politics like addresses reforms we fundamentally need, like equal rights, marriage equality, just like the basic human rights that every other citizen of the country has. Like I'm not criticizing the aims. They're 100% necessary. But what I think tends to happen is that identity politics, and I know it's not intended to do this, intersectionality, it's supposed to have the opposite effect, but I think it tends to end up being a bit divisive, because when you get an intersectional base together, it kind of has this tendency to fragment the moment you decide what intersection to address first. And I think that's exploited pretty effectively by the, like, I'm not going to say the Republicans, but I'll say the MAGAs, because you're not going to have like a bunch of straight white men that are willing to sacrifice for the rights of gay immigrants. So you end up like with a natural what's the word I'm looking for? A natural weakness toward attempts to divide and conquer. So my idea is that at least that intersectional politics is kind of dying, and the only real solution is to switch it to something that's more unifying at its core. And my idea is that it kind of has to start with labor. You have to start with labor, because it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It doesn't matter who you are. We can all get together in the fight for better wages that give us the ability to build better lives. And it would come with the idea that economic equality is the best path to social equality. And you're uniquely situated on kind of both sides of that. So I just wanted to see what you think.
So, here's what I always think the challenge is for the modern Democratic Party. I think we sometimes pick litmus tests for participation, and that is the tension, right? So I think that there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that women make less than men.
Exactly.
Right? I think there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that people of color are experiencing challenges when it comes to job access, right? I think you don't lose anything by doing that. I do think where Democrats get lost and get caught up is that they often try to platform over actual policy, right? So when you are trying to say, I'm the I'm the most oppressed person, and that gives me a level of expertise, or this person doesn't get to have a voice. When I talk to LGBTQ folks, to your point, I hear a lot about they want to be able to buy a home, they want to be able to work at their job without fear of retaliation, they want to be able to get access to the healthcare that they need. Yes, they also want symbols and support, right? Raising the pride flag in Green Bay meant a lot to a lot of people. And so much so that the right wing tried to ban it 3 times in the city. But more than that, making sure that people can be supported, welcomed, and also be like kind of left alone was also the thing. So I guess to me, it's a both and. I think we have to acknowledge that this system that we're currently operating in does have winners and losers, right? And it's not just based on class. So it's like, yes, if you're a working class person, particularly in this moment, you are watching wealthy and the well-connected completely take advantage of a system, and that we are seeing the largest play for pay scheme around corporations and the federal administration that we've ever seen in modern history. Simultaneously, we know that they are targeting brown people and saying, whether you are actually documented or not documented, we're going to claim that you are, we're going to arrest you. We know that, like, if you're a young person protesting, that they might try to ruin your career. Like, it matters that you show up in the world with the different experiences you have. And so I don't think it's anti-intersectionality. I think intersectionality at its best says that there are core things that connect all of us from different points of contact. And I think the bastardization of that is, you can only speak to this if, you can only care about this if. And I think that is, frankly, a terrible trend in the Democratic Party. And we've seen that, right? And the strange part is, sometimes it's not even about identity. It's whether you fall in line or not. And I never a Democratic Party that says, unless you organize perfectly, talk perfectly, say all of the right things perfectly, we can't include you. Because I can't tell you how many people don't know where the borders of Green Bay are in Madison. I have to explain to them that Alloway is not Green Bay, right? But Bellevue is
Fortunately.
Yeah, I know. I wish it was. But like, I have to explain that to people, and they're going to tell me that they can't be self-righteous, and they can't even figure out where the geographic area of Green Bay is.
Right.
There's a self-righteousness that is different. Now, my personal opinion, I care about housing. I think housing has been denied to people for different ways. You can acknowledge all the ways they've been denied. My dream is that we make housing accessible to everyone.
Yes.
So by also making accessible to young people, working families, LGBTQ folks, recently, people who just recently become citizens, or folks who are immigrants, also makes it easier for straight white men too, right? That housing should be available to everybody. And I don't have a litmus test, but I think this is the kind of rising tension of the Democratic Party. And I hope they get over themselves and stop trying to not left, it's not even out left, it's out platform. Like I'm the smartest person in the room. Not really. And even if you were or were not, you still deserve housing, right? You still deserve a good job. You deserve to not be discriminated because of who you love and how you show up. So I don't know, does that answer that, James?
Yeah, as close as something like that can ever. No, a dog's going crazy in my room. as close as something like that can ever come to being fully answered. It definitely complicates it, and it gives me some more things to think about, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great thing to be thinking about. I kind of ties into a question that I also wanted to ask. And one of the things, I do not identify particularly with the Democratic Party on the national level. I find myself kind of further left than a lot of the modern like policy prescriptions and that type of thing. But I will say, and we've been on the show, very complimentary towards the state and local Democratic leaders, because we think that, you guys are doing a great job. So I guess my one kind of reoccurring question, a sort of will they, won't they on the show that we have, is will the Democrats and can they kind of take off the metaphorical gloves, so to speak? And you kind of mentioned that in your story of kind of sinking your heels in the ground and being like, no, I'm standing up for what I believe in. So I guess it's kind of, what can the Democrats do to better fight the fascism that we're seeing? And do you think the gloves will come off at some point? Because it's getting, Emma mentioned it on the last show that you have people that are not playing by the rules, and then you have some people that are insisting we still play by the rules, and so it's kind of getting messy.
So just to be like very clear, I have just as much smoke for Democrats as I do for Republicans.
Right.
And it's not that I think I'm independent. It's that I always want a Democratic Party. The party that I most align with in this modern moment is the Democratic Party.
Right.
So
exactly.
just have to like name what that looks like for me. And I think I jokingly sometimes say that I'm an old school Democrat, and that like there was a time where like everybody was welcome, and we fought for a very clear set of goals around making sure everyday people had material improvements, from the Great Deal to anti-predatory lending to the Glass-Steagall Act to like all these kind of clear-eyed, like we shouldn't have monopolies, and we should have increased living wages, and just because you're a woman, you shouldn't be excluded. I mean, to me, that is why I'm a Democrat at this point in my life, is that those historical things, lived in one place, but it was broadly shared over time by parties.
It was more of a coalition, so to speak.
Yes, and my politics are coalition based. I told you how I got to start. So I always think coalitions are good, whether they're, no matter how they show up. I am struggling with the National Democratic Party. I want to just kind of be really clear.
Yeah.
They frustrate me because it feels like they keep, they're just not stepping up. And to me, it's that we can't complain about the apathy of voters if the apathy of elected officials is showing up. You can't let's wait to the next election. And so guess what I'm going to say is, I don't know what the Democrats are going to do, but I do think they should take a lesson from Green Bay. When we started fighting back against folks who had billionaire backing, who were interfering in our elections, who were trying to launch fake investigations, including the attempt to arrest the mayor of Green Bay, who were trying to do political litmus tests of city staff. They were banning the word equity. They were banning the use of green infrastructure. And it's so funny because this was 4 years ago. This wasn't last 7 months. This is the last 4 years, right? This is under, in the national guise, of Biden administration. We are watching the MAGA right use all the tools that they're using now. And the answer was, why don't we create a cross-section movement that asks you, do you want to get something done? Not how you vote, how frequently you vote, whether you're even a Democrat or Republican. We didn't ask any of those questions. I mean, we were, squarely in the Democratic camp, but that wasn't, we said, do you think we should have more of early voting? And we had a majority MAGA council that we got a unanimous support, not because they actually cared about what me and the mayor thought, because people flooded their inboxes and showed up and fought with us and said, we think there should be more voting in Green Bay, not less, right? The same thing with the flag raising. That was not the centerpiece of our LGBTQ agenda, but it became the centerpiece of a fight, and they wanted to take it down. So we said, hey, do you think it's okay for your majority MAGA council to try to take away the pride flag? The community said no. The community, and we didn't say you have to say the right terms. We didn't say that you had to understand trans healthcare. We didn't say you had to agree with every single aspect of the LGBT community. We said, do you think it's okay for them to shut this down and make people feel excluded? And people said, hell no. And so they showed up. And so to me, the lesson for what I want to teach national Democrats is what we did here in Green Bay. Green Bay was one of the only 2 cities in the 2024 election that got bluer, where everywhere else got red. This is one of a few places across the country where Harris actually got more votes than Joe Biden did in 2020. And that's not just because of their individual candidacies and campaigns. It's that over the last 5 to 10 years, we've told people we don't want extremism causing problems. We don't want them wasting our tax dollars. We don't tell us what to do. We don't want billionaires trying to buy our elections. If we organize, we can win. If we can fight, we can win. I wish every Democrat could learn that lesson. I'm not sure it's going to happen. And I don't think we should have political litmus tests. The people who fought for green infrastructure may not have been the people who showed up for the pride flag. The people who showed up for early voting weren't always the people who showed up for AmeriCorps. But what we did is that all of those are the through line. You could show up for the thing that you cared about and be a part of our broader coalition, and that we were going to fight for all those things, even if this was more salient to you versus this one. And you know what we didn't say? If you're a straight white guy, we didn't say, oh, you can't come. We didn't say that. We didn't say like, oh, if that we only invite this group of people to be here. We said whether you're trans or straight, whether you don't even want to talk about your sexuality or not, whether you have voted for Democrats your whole life or you haven't even voted yet, that you could help us create more democracy, create a stronger, more environmental Green Bay, support the LGBTQ community, make sure that we start doing more access to union jobs. We're going to be doing more of that work here locally. There was just never cut off. So I don't know what to, I kind of like, it pisses me off that like Democrats are apathetic. And I think this is like a real tension point. And we're going to see it. We'll see how long I stay a Democrat. Because, well, not because I'm left or right of them. I think they're not doing enough.
Right.
And that is my tension, is that I shouldn't need a political party moniker to be able to get things done for my community. These are common sense things. I don't know what world it is considered radical to like build more housing, create a greener Green Bay, to like make more democracy and make it like this. None of this, it's partisan.
Right.
So that's why I'm a little bit even more annoyed. It's like, why can't we be brave enough to stand up? Like making sure that there are free meals for kids in school. 80% of the people agree with that. Like, this is crazy. The Parkey program in Green Bay, I mean, these are, funding homeless veterans, right? We didn't do it, right? Let's say legislature couldn't fund homeless veterans. Easily a bipartisan issue. And so, I don't know, maybe I am a Democrat, but I do think I'm a Democrat that wants to get something done.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let whether I'm a Democrat or not stop me from getting something done. And I think that should be the politics of every political party, in my opinion. It's about building a coalition of people who want to get good things done and improve people's lives. And I will work with anyone that was willing to do that. But I'm also very clear that there are extremists. And when I mean by extremists, people who like want to bring the Proud Boys to kill me and the mayor and the first black clerk, I'm not going to give them.
Nazis aren't allowed in the coalition.
Yeah, right. And I think that's like not hard. Like we've come to a world where like, is it really hard to say we don't want Nazis in the coalition? So to me, like I think it's a welcome to everyone, except
Nazis.
Except, I mean, it's like, if you're a hate group, like I'm not sure. Like
never thought that would be controversial in 2025, but
in 2025, it's probably going to make a front page news that I said, I don't think Nazis are part of my coalition. And
they're going to be like, how dare you?
How dare you be so inclusive? You're so woke. And, I just think that is a testament to how wackadoo our politics have gotten, is that I'm pretty no-Nazi. And I think I think that's controversial.
That's
does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, that's a point that I've made in past episodes about the radical thing. Is it's like calling ourselves radical is really more tongue in cheek than anything, because when you look at it, what we value as radical was really just baseline American politics 80 years ago, and it's just because we
40 years ago.
Yeah,
40 years ago.
And it's just that we moved so far to the right that now we seem radical, but really we're not, and that's why I like to just use that as tongue in cheek. But I remember regarding the Democratic Party's inaction, because Hakeem Jeffries needs to resign. I don't like him. I remember when I was when we were at the watch party for oh my God, I almost said Susan Crawford's election. That we were all excited. My whole canvassing team was there. We were pounding the tables. It was great. It felt so much different from November. And I remember that you and I went over, and you were like, we did this the Wisconsin way, our way, and we fucking won. And I was so with that, because it was like, yeah, exactly. Because in the November election, we had to do the whole, I know she's hanging out with Liz Cheney and stuff, but support her anyway, I guess, instead of actually advocating for the things that would get people out, which is kind of what they saw in New York with Zoran versus Cuomo and the others, is that it's about addressing people's needs, and you can get the kind of intersectional stuff if you first address the core issue that people care about, which is affordability and stuff like that. And so that's what we did. We addressed the core issues that were relating to that campaign, one of which happened to be Elon Musk, which we didn't see coming, but we did it. And that was what won us the thing and flipped counties like Brown County that don't normally go that way. So I just, it's frustrating to me to watch all of us be sitting here fighting and working. And like, I've worked for Democrats 2 canvassing cycles now where I literally had to put braces on my knees to keep them working so I could keep knocking doors. And then after the election was lost, people, even like Gavin Newsom, who's now decided to turn a corner and start fighting again, started going and platforming Charlie Kirk and saying, I agree with you that trans people suck. Like that sucks. It doesn't feel good to have Democrats, to work so hard for Democrats and then have them completely just flip the script on me and basically endorse, or not necessarily endorse, but completely stay out of fighting back against MAGA when they come after people like me. And so but that's one thing I like about Green Bay is that we are actually doing that. And even conservatives here have made me feel like one of the first jobs that I got when I started, my managers were conservative. Most of the people that I worked with were conservative, but the second I'd asked them to use my preferred nickname, at least, and pronouns, they were right on board with it. And they were like, yeah, sure. I mean, why wouldn't we? It makes you happy, and making you happy, it makes you do customer service better. So, and that's just something that I never got until I moved here. So I really appreciated that. And I was going somewhere with this. Oh, sorry, ADHD rabbit trail. As far as the legislature goes, I had read somewhere that one of the things that's keeping us from implementing things like rent control or any kind of regulations on housing in those ways is actually prohibited in state law. Could you elucidate on that?
So rent control is different than other forms of housing policy. Just like, so if you're comparing it, is that like in some states, they've been able to enact these rules. The East Coast has a little bit of this. The West Coast has a little bit of this. That's a pretty controversial policy here in Wisconsin, right? And so, and I have mixed feelings about rent control. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure that it is actually, this is a mod speed. I'm not entirely sure it's an actual good policy ultimately, because what we've seen in some ways is, and any system can do this, is that it often keeps some apartments artificially low, but those end up beginning to get passed down to people and family members. So regardless of their income, so there's actually no new units that come onto. So basically, whoever gets there first basically gets it forever. Yeah. And that also doesn't seem like a great system, but I get why there's a deep interest in like, how do we deal with the rising costs of apartments and rent? But right now that currently isn't illegal at the local level. And so there would have to be a statewide law. There have been people who've attempted to do a statewide Wisconsin law on rent control. So there are people who are interested in it. I think of some other policies that might work. Like I love the kind of range of housing diversity from tiny homes to bigger homes, but in smaller lots, or having different options. I always think of Astor Park, where if you're in this neighborhood, you go from a duplex to old school Victorian, right next to a small apartment, right next to like a bungalow, like across the street is like a 1,000-foot square house. Across the street from that is like like almost an acre lot house. So I tend to like.
I always love canvassing in Astor for that reason.
I love that level of housing diversity. We know that allows for a lot of mixed income communities, and we know mixed income communities are stronger. But yes, so I guess you are right that you'd have to get state law to change to enact a policy like rent control. But that's not the only reason housing policy is not passing. It really is that we're kind of shitty at doing it. And even when we do pass things, like for example, and I love the governor, he's great, passed $500 million worth of housing 3 years ago. Because of bureaucracy, less than 10% of that's been used for housing affordability. Less than 10%, right? And so we've got to figure out how to deliver and get that stuff for people. And I think people should be thinking creatively. Well, I may not personally support rent control. I think people thinking creatively of solutions that we haven't tried yet, or at least asking these questions, is helpful, right? Because it pushes the idea that there isn't one silver bullet. So I think you should keep asking, even if I may not personally support that policy as is. But I do think that part of the reason why housing policy is stalling is that we aren't good at delivering material benefits fast. And I'd like to change that for all government, but particularly for Democrats, because I do think that the MAGAs are delivering, I mean, chaos and corruption, but they are delivering. And if the Democrats or liberals are going to take back, national politics, we've got to get better at delivering too.
Yeah. And what, sorry. One thing, it is very like a multifaceted issue. I had this argument with somebody in the llama page that we have in the community where he was like, it's all about supply. And I was like, well, no, I've dealt with housing struggles. I've been homeless. Yeah. I'm currently dealing with one right now where I live in Bayview Estates, and they just got bought by Enigma Properties, which is in Milwaukee. And literally for 6 months, we could not get in touch with anybody. Still haven't 8 months later because they bought it in January. Can't get any maintenance done on the place. But then they were like, we're going to raise the rent to $1,500 a month.
Wow.
No maintenance done on the place. We had to literally beg one of the random people that we saw over here to help us fix our door because I couldn't get inside to get my cat because the door wouldn't unlock and everything. And it's just like, there's no, as far as I know anyway, there's no protections for that. And that's the kind of stuff that makes, like, we had this nice gentleman downstairs that had to move out because he was on a fixed income as an elderly retired person.
Yeah.
And when they jacked up the rent, he was like, well, I can't afford that, so I got to move. Yeah. And those are the kinds of issues underlying the rest of the housing problems that a lot of people don't really recognize. And how do you solve those? Who knows? But
and just so you know, we're going to be doing a Know Your Rights workshop on housing, on tenant protection. So I'll be hosting that in the coming month or so, where whether you are a homeowner, getting into homeownership, a renter in an apartment or in a dorm, we're going to be showing you what kind of rights you actually have under law, how to use them, how to file complaints, and see if there's anything we can, and teaching people about fair housing. And there is going to be some legislation I'm putting forward that's going to be kind of enhancing these protections. Awesome. And so, because what you're describing is, we've been there too as a family. And so what does it look like when we had a landlord one time who was fixing the roof with his son, broke one of the windows into the house, put a plastic bag and said, we'll fix it. For 2 years, there was just a plastic bag on the window into the house. And it just didn't get fixed for 2 years. So we just had this high heating bill because we had to blast the heat, right? So because it was in the winter, it'd be so cold because there was a plastic bag on it. And I, thinking back, I wish I would have been more handy. I would have probably put a piece of wood up. And I just didn't think, I was
even plywood.
I was a kid, I was young. So, totally agree with you that it's both supply and that people are not only following the rules, but they think you have no other options. And so they're treating you like crap. And we have to do something about that.
Thanks.
I think you all had questions.
Where do you have a time and date, place, if anybody that listens to us is interested in attending that workshop?
We are going to do it in October. We'll put it out on social, but it should be in October.
Okay. All right. I had a couple comments and another question. First comment, you were talking about not having how the Democratic Party is excluding people based on the background or talking the perfect talk. And I want to say that I personally know that Ahmad doesn't just talk this talk, he walks that walk. I first met Ahmad at least a year and a half before anybody thought you were running for anything. When
I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah. Before we knew Christina Shelton was stepping down or not running for re-election. Ahmad was working as Mayor Genrich's chief of staff, and Ahmad and Mayor Genrich asked me to work on a project to eventually get some legislation banning conversion therapy in front of the Common Council. And literally, as I'm a straight white guy, and this is who they had working on it. Second thing is a bit of a question, and okay, a little background on me. I am a homeowner. I'm not a homeowner because I am exceptionally successful or hardworking. I'm a homeowner because, my grandpa got rich off the stock market years ago, and my family assisted me. And I'm very grateful for that support. Don't take this the wrong way, but it's not my doing. If it was my doing, I would not be a homeowner. My family supported me in getting a house. And the moment I got the house, all of a sudden voting trying to work to fix housing problems works against my own interest. Like, if the bubble crashes, then the price of my home goes down. If it's more affordable, the price of my home goes down. It's like the system is kind of fundamentally broken to a degree. And based off that, I think you can almost blame the national Democrats, on the national level, at least a bit, for the rise of MAGA, because the fact that the system is broken is visible to anybody with a functioning set of eyes. And the Democrats have consistently been the party of, no, everything is working fine. We promise everything is working fine. You can't really act that surprised when, somebody goes no and votes for somebody who says the system's broken. Like,
That's right.
I don't agree with any of the reasons that MAGA says the system is broken, but there's an acknowledgement of a lot of the suffering and hardship that people are going through. And I think that's the scariest draw of the MAGA movement, because it's not entirely wrong.
Yeah.
And just a couple things there, because I want to, one, I think that we've painted home ownership and affordability in opposition to each other, when I think that to me is a misnomer. To me, that is kind of a bipartisan kind of lore that we need to break, right? Your property values going down isn't necessarily bad for you at all. In fact, it reduces your overall property taxes every time it goes down. But what we have done is commercialize and like using capital in that actual word, saying that if your house isn't going up, you're actually not building wealth. That's such a crazy notion and very modern. Until the aughts and 2000s, you having a house was a stabilizing effect, not a way to build wealth. And so, like, you're right, there is this idea that we're in opposition, but that's a modern invention, in my opinion. I always tell people, I want to increase affordability. I do want your property values to go down. It then becomes cheaper for your property taxes. And if you want to sell it, you probably bought this house for, much cheaper. Yes, there might be some people who are like, well, I bought it at the height. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough no matter what you do. But you should be paying less property taxes. It should be less expensive for you to buy the home that you currently have. And if you want to change homes, it shouldn't be hard that your lifestyle has changed and you want something smaller or bigger. You shouldn't be like, if I leave this house, I can't afford anything else. That should not be the case. So I want to say I agree with you, but I do think the system is set up to put us against each other, but I don't think it's always been that way, and it's really important. But I will say, what I want to end with you is, I think that's 100% right, acknowledging people's pain. When we used to bring up two Democrats, what we were seeing here on the ground level, basically people told us we needed to be satisfied that Biden was elected. And we're like, well, they're trying to kill us. We should, some Democrats listened, and it was really great, but it wasn't collective. Some people said it was self-inflicted. The fever dream will just run out. People did not want to step up in Green Bay. And we had to create, not a new crop, but we made a new group of people, a new coalition come together saying, we do think standing up matters, whether people think this is real or not. So, and that the system was messed up, that people could come and try to arrest the mayor for there being a made up thing, like he has a staffer who's an undocumented African who made up having a husband, right? Like that led to a little, not only death threat, but attempting to arrest the mayor. And we said, no, you can't do that. So I do think, James, you hit like the nail on the head. Democrats, and generally any politician, has to be better about acknowledging where our system fails, and where there's promise, right? And I think my story and all of your stories is both its perils and its promise, right? In the worst ways, it excludes people like all of us and tells us that we're not good enough to get the work done, or we don't deserve good things. And in its best, it creates a pathway that we all can thrive no matter how we show up in that story. And so I 100% agree that Democrats and everyone else needs to be better about acknowledging the brokenness of our system, and that sometimes we're just going to have to fight for a better one.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more too. And one thing that I kind of wanted to circle back a little bit, you had mentioned briefly about kind of creative policy and how important that is. And as somebody who's a huge policy nerd, I literally have policy textbooks behind me in my bookshelf. I think that's actually one thing that James and Emma and I actually were really good at, and I'm quite thankful for UWGB, their political science program.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You could be super creative with policy. And so that's one thing that I love seeing, and especially like looking at candidates like Zoran and stuff like that, and how creative they are. And some of the stuff is not, they're not making it up, but they're, kind of ushering in policies that most people haven't thought about. And so I think that creativity is very important to solve a lot of the issues, especially when it comes, climate policy, I have a degree in, so that's kind of what I like. And I think especially with green infrastructure and stuff like that, being creative is important, I think, in our modern political kind of landscape.
It's so funny to me because I laugh about this because I always remind people that some of the things that we see as innovative now, people have always been doing, right?
Right.
So I think about like my Black grandmother used to always make collard greens. She lives in the middle of an urban city. And so she figured out a way to remove the bricks in her backyard to create a little garden. So she grew her own collard greens. She didn't call it climate action. She didn't call it like small footprint. She didn't call it like local.
Yeah.
She was just like, we want to have fresh vegetables, and it's really easy to do this even in an urban environment. Let me just make these collard greens, right? My Puerto Rican grandmother used to raise chickens in a very small space. So it wasn't like she had this giant farm.
Right.
Those are both considered innovations and creative policy in this modern era, but it's a little old school, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that being both creative and also looking at history, that not everything that we need to do has never been done before. Some of these things have been done before. We've just kind of lost it through the ways in the means of the modern space. And that letting people think thoughtfully about policy doesn't mean that we're like going to do something crazy. I think it's really exciting when people look up new policy or find really innovative ways. No one thought we could do a conservation corps in Green Bay. Literally, the own city's officials, aside from the mayor, were like, this is not possible. It's never been done. It was just a conservation corps. A conservation corps existed historically, right? Mm-hmm. And we now are the first municipally run conservation corps in Wisconsin, one of a few across the country. And it's going great, right? But we actually didn't do anything new. All the things that we're doing are treading into things that have been done before: trail maintenance, invasive species, rain barrels, natural ways to get rid of mosquitoes. These are all things that people have been doing forever. We just found a new way to do it in this modern era. And so I really like people being innovative and coming to me with policies that we haven't tried, we need to think through, or asking questions. I had a friend reach out, say, can we do ranked choice voting in Green Bay? I said, I don't know. Let me find out. Right. And so wouldn't that be really exciting? So I tend to want to light the candle of creativity, saying, I don't know what the right answer is for every policy solution. And so why not create some more space for people to explore and have a conversation about what's possible? And I might say, like, I don't think rent control is the answer. I think some protections are probably better, but it doesn't mean that's the only answer either, right? Like, why not be thoughtful and creative? So please always bring me your creative solutions. I'm always willing to explore and think through.
Noted. For after this, I have a policy that I found that's climate related that I thought was brilliant. So I'll have to send you a link. Yes, I will.
I was actually going to bring up, it was nice that you tied into that with both of you, because that helped out. What I was going to say was that one thing that I've been percolating on for a while was the idea of potentially getting and this is still just rudimentary, so it's probably not going to be the best expression of it, but like urban gardening has been a thing that's been floated as an idea of dealing with the climate change and also food scarcity. And I had thought, after I visited the botanical gardens with the UWGB Civic Scholars, shout out to Katya, she's amazing, that it would be kind of maybe if there's a way to get them to get their horticulturalists over with the Conservation Corps, work together and start building urban gardens in Green Bay and teaching people how to take care of them and that sort of thing. And then actually solving that problem locally. And then, it's one of those situations where if it works out here, we can then scale it, and then say elsewhere in Wisconsin, we can help them out and show you hey, this is the Green Bay way,
So I love this because this is exactly what we're doing. So the JBS project that I led is about a food ecosystem while also building more mixed income housing. And so the whole goal is that there is 5 acres where we're going to train and develop people to make vegetables that we need and food that we need here locally all year round, including using high tunnels. That we're going to use a commercial kitchen and add a canning space so that this is anyone can use this, that we can do canning. And if they want to take that and then incubate that into a larger food share program, that they will be able to do that. But if a neighbor wants to come in and just do canning and other things, they can do that, or start a little bit, not a garden, but like actual food access. We have a community gardening program in the city that people love, and it's going really well. And then even at this JBS site, we're starting to explore food forest, also in Seymour Park. So we're actually building an orchard into the JBS project where anyone can just come and actually take apples and just bring them home at any point in time. There is no fee. You get to just walk in, grab some apples. Hopefully no one throws the apples. That car is coming by. We're gonna figure that out. But we're also having a food forest in Seymour Park. So to your point, and this is why I love this when you talk about creative policy, Green Bay is doing it in a different way than almost any other city in the state or in the country. And the idea that we're creating a public access orchard, mini orchard, and we have an edible forest in Seymour Park, and that we are trying to get people they can even use their front yards in Green Bay for food if you want. That we're doing it differently here, and it's so natural. And that's what I love about Green Bay, is that, again, there's nothing radical about producing food in a community that is filled with farmers or the children of farmers.
Why shouldn't we?
It's super normal. And I'm always like, these right-wing folks would be like, oh, you're so, I'm like, we literally, I married the son of dairy farmers. People making their own local food isn't radical. Sorry to bring it to you in Green Bay, just isn't radical. So I think my most radical position is I treat my dogs like human kids. That's probably what
Cats are people too.
They are people too, in my opinion. I know that might be slightly radical. So.
If you think
cats, hi buddy.
If you think these positions are radical, and like, there's always new creative ways to apply things, but every idea anybody's had, somebody's had it before. It's just kind of the way the world works. And if you don't believe me, there's a certain politician by the name of Bernie Sanders, who was recently almost the Democrat. Well, yeah, he was almost the Democratic nominee for president twice.
Right.
Despite having like these crazy radical, oh my God, these are the fresh ideas people need. No, the man has been saying the exact same thing since the 60s. He hasn't changed it once. He's spent his entire career doing the exact same thing. Like, the ideas, the people that want to follow through on them and make them into reality, they exist. They're already in place. They're already trying. We just need the community support behind it.
Right. And I think the best political parties are the ones that are inviting the community to be part of the solutions.
Yes.
Right? I think that is ultimately, full circle conversation. I think that's kind of what I think, whether people want to call that radical or not. I think allowing solutions to be community driven, community involved, and folks being able to shape those policies really makes a huge difference. And so I just think that that's where we do the best work. Every policy that we're doing now that's considered progressive in Green Bay is come from the community. Every single idea has come from the community. And so to me, it's really refreshing. That's why I don't think no one calls Mayor Genrich radical. I honestly don't even get radical either. Every once in a while, they're just like, you're gay and brown. And I go, I think that means I'm radical. But I'm always like, oh, not really, to be honest. We're like, in Green Bay, these are just such normal, everyday issues. And they're excited that government is finally listening and reflecting on these things that are just everyday normal things, right? I actually think there's room to push people like me and others. But my hope is that government as deeply reflective of their community as possible. And then I think we start losing radical conservative, Democrat, Republican, when we're actually very solutions focused and everyday material improvement focused. All of a sudden those parties don't matter as much, right?
It's just about the people.
Yeah. Right. For me, I know, maybe we're radical. Maybe that's why we're on this podcast together.
Right.
Wait,
no.
People actually accuse you of being radical for being gay and brown. I mean, it's 2025. The RNC in Milwaukee crashed Grindr last year.
Yeah. Release the grinder files.
I will say, I think everything they thought I was radical. There was one person who said they thought I spent all year planning the pride flag raising. That was my job. As she was sad.
Your only focus in life was to
My
get
only
back to
focus.
get
And I was
pride
like,
flag raised.
I wish that's all I could focus on.
Release the manifesto.
That would have been really helpful. That was a lot of other things I had to work on. And so, I always take it as tongue in cheek. I'm not sure. People have called me radical. And then now I'm getting that I'm a moderate. So I don't know which is more insulting, whether I'm a radical or I'm a moderate.
You just send them the link to this show and say, I don't know about that.
Are you sure?
You heard it here first.
John Cena, are you sure about that?
Right. I just
radical centrist.
Right. I just don't think those labels matter when you actually focus on the policies that improve people's lives. And I think, building more housing, creating an earth that can be here in the future, making sure that folks can have access to a good job. I just don't think that should be difficult. And if that's radical, so be it. But I just think those are things that we should expect from our government. And I think there's all this innovation in between that we could do. That I think is super cool and interesting. But I'm going to have to go soon.
Okay, I got a good last question, I think.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing about representing Green Bay and your district?
Besides us.
I have to pick one thing.
You can have a couple,
So this is what I love to tell people about Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do we are a community that defies what is expected of working people. We're a blue collar community that has an NFL team, a botanical garden, a wildlife sanctuary, and a government run amusement park. We have programming in our parks. We have public schools that create apprenticeship programs. We have a modern Green Bay metro system that actually allows you to get Uber-like access to public transportation. When I think of Green Bay, I think of, yes, it's blue collar roots, but I think of how much we punch above our weight and how that is just normal here. And I think there's a reason why we're considered the number one place to live in the country, is because you can be in a neighborhood like Astor and walk to your Saturday farmers market and go to a Sunday home game celebration right downtown, or get to ride your bike to Lambeau. We have a first-class university right in the borders of the city that has a higher enrollment percentage than University of Madison, right? And so we're just this incredible community that feels like a secret, but we've kind of gotten a lot of things right. And so I love bragging about this city. And to me, you had asked us way early on about optimism. It's when I talk to my neighbors and engage on the things that people care about, what people love about each other, care about this community. It's such a shared value that it feels magical to be here. Right. And so if anything, leaving here is where I get sad. I'm always like, Madison as a capital, where we do all our politicking, feels so detached from the neighborly kindness, kind of rooted in working class values that Green Bay naturally has. And so I kind of like all of it. But like, I just don't think you get a place as special as Green Bay anywhere else in Wisconsin. I truly don't. And I think I'm lucky enough that they elected me to represent them, and I want to continuously make them proud.
You're doing a great job making us, at least on the show, proud. We're all big fans of the work that you do and how you're still involved with community organizing, even though, you're an elected official, and everything like that is always great to see. But it's been great to have you on, Ahmad. You're always welcome back on the show. I don't have any other questions of James and Emma. Last time we ended with talking about whether or not cats or dogs are more left wing. So that was pretty interesting. And I'm a dog person. I know you're a dog person. So
hey, we outnumber Emma now.
Yeah, we do.
It's true. My goblin boy is very polite, though. He actually puts his paw out to my shoulder to get attention.
I thought that cats were pretty left wing, but they kind of changed my mind a little bit on that, I think.
I still believe that they are.
The big difference for me is one is codependent and one is very individualistic.
Okay.
And so I think dogs tend to be like the like I can't be here without you.
Right.
And cats are like, I can survive on my own.
Right.
Yeah, I think, I agree with you on dogs. You know, it's the greater good. It's the good of the pack, the good of the community. They're they're labor organizing creatures. Where cats are specifically right libertarians because they're fiercely independent while depending on systems they know nothing about.
Oh my, that is the most hilarious thing I've ever.
No, don't get me wrong. I love cats, but
We love
Yes.
the cat. They like
Left 4 Dead loves cats too.
Mr. Burton.
Yes, yes.